When you think about history's great centers of learning, what comes to mind? Probably cities like Renaissance Florence, or maybe ancient Athens, right? But what if I told you that some of the most important golden ages in history have been almost completely forgotten? These weren't just interesting footnotes. They were places that literally changed the course of our world.
So, let me just ask you this. Try to picture the world over 1,000 years ago, around 900 AD. Push all those famous European capitals out of your head. What was the biggest, brightest, most advanced city on the entire planet? I'm willing to bet the answer is going to surprise you.
That's right, Baghdad. For a while there, it was, without a doubt, the largest, wealthiest, and most intellectually dazzling city on Earth. It was the beating heart of a golden age that sent light out across the globe.
Okay, so how on earth did Baghdad become this incredible beacon of knowledge? Well, it's a fascinating story about some really forward-thinking leaders and just an insatiable hunger for learning. This all happened under a dynasty called the Abbasid Caliphate, which was basically a huge Islamic empire run by one supreme leader, the Caliph.
The guy at the center of all this, the real engine, was a caliph named Al-Mamun. And what's interesting is, he wasn't even the direct heir, but his father saw that he had this incredible intellect and burning curiosity. And it was that personal passion for knowledge that really fueled Baghdad's meteoric rise.
And at the heart of this intellectual explosion was an institution called the House of Wisdom. Now, don't just picture a dusty library. This place was so much more. Think of it like a top-tier university, a cutting-edge research lab, and a massive translation center all rolled into one. Al-Mamun championed it, and it became this powerful magnet, pulling in the sharpest minds from all over the known world.
And this incredible place, the House of Wisdom, powered one of the most ambitious intellectual projects in all of human history. It was called the Great Translation Movement.
The process itself was absolutely revolutionary, so scholars were sent out on missions to collect every important text they could find, from Greece, from India, from Persia. They'd bring them back to Baghdad, translate them all into Arabic, but, and this is the most important part, they didn't just stop there. The goal wasn't just to preserve old books, it was to absorb that knowledge, debate it, build on it, and then use it to create something entirely new.
And the result was a total explosion of innovation. You had medicine, astronomy, philosophy, engineering, all flourishing. And here's a perfect example of the impact. A scholar working in the House of Wisdom, named Al-Khwarizmi, took the numeral system from India, the numbers 1, 2, 3 that we use every single day, and introduced them to the Middle East. That one move completely revolutionized mathematics forever.
But hold on, Baghdad wasn't the only star lighting up the sky. At the exact same time, another equally brilliant golden age was happening in a place you might not expect, Europe. To be specific, in a city called Córdoba in what is now Spain.
I mean, the difference between Córdoba and the rest of Europe around the year 1000 is just staggering. While cities like London or Paris had dark, muddy lanes, Córdoba had paved streets with streetlights. It had nearly 900 public baths. And this wasn't just about being fancy. It was about a whole different approach to public health and cleanliness, at a time when much of Europe thought bathing was actually suspicious.
And right at the center of this incredible city was a massive library, built by Caliph al-Hakam II. It's estimated to have held 400,000 books. Now, to give you an idea of just how huge that was, the biggest library anywhere in Christian Europe at the time might have had a few hundred manuscripts, maybe. This collection was on a completely different scale.
So, what was Córdoba's secret sauce? Well, this slide gives you a pretty big clue. Just look at the mix. It was this incredible melting pot where Muslim, Christian, and Jewish communities all lived and worked side by side. That created this super vibrant, multicultural environment where ideas could just collide and spark off of each other. And what powered all of this collaboration was language. Seriously, if you were a scholar in Córdoba, you were expected to be fluent in Arabic, Latin, and Hebrew. This wasn't just an academic exercise. It was the key that unlocked the free exchange of knowledge between these different cultures.
But, for all their dazzling brilliance, these golden ages were fragile, and the way they ended was just as dramatic as the way they began.
For Baghdad, the end came with terrifying speed. In 1251, the Mongol Great Khan sent a message demanding that the Caliph in Baghdad submit. The Caliph refused, and turned out to be a fatal mistake. Just 7 years later, a massive Mongol army of 150,000 soldiers showed up at the gates. The siege began on January 29th. By February 10th, less than 2 weeks later, it was all over.
What happened next was a catastrophe. The invaders sacked the city, and in one of the most devastating acts of cultural destruction in history, they completely annihilated the House of Wisdom. An entire era of human genius and discovery came to a violent, tragic end.
Qurtubah's story was different. It wasn't some huge foreign invasion that brought it down. It was more like a slow decay from the inside. After its greatest caliph died, the whole system was just torn apart by about 50 years of political infighting. It finally collapsed on itself in the year 1031.
But here's the thing. The story doesn't actually end with fire and collapse. Because the knowledge that was nurtured in these incredible places, well, it didn't just vanish. It was passed on, and its echo is still shaping our world today. You see, Qurtubah's greatest legacy was that it acted like a giant bridge of knowledge. It took all this ancient Greek wisdom that had been preserved, fused it with the latest breakthroughs from the Islamic world, and it was across this bridge that all of that learning started to flow back into a Europe that was, frankly, in the dark. It helped plant the very seeds that would later blossom into the Renaissance.
And this environment produced some absolute intellectual heavyweights. You have figures like the philosopher Ibn Rushd, who's known in the West as Averroes. His writings on Aristotle were the main reason the Greek philosopher's work was rediscovered in Europe. And then there's Moses Maimonides, one of the most important Jewish thinkers of all time. Their ideas lived on long after Qurtubah's political power was gone.
And the level of thinking was just profound. Take the historian Ibn Khaldun. The famous 20th century historian Arnold Toynbee looked at his major work, the Muqaddimah, and called it, quote, the greatest work of its kind that has ever been created by any mind in time or place. That's the kind of legacy we're talking about here.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? I think it's that the story of human progress isn't a neat, straight line that just leads to us. And it definitely doesn't belong to any one culture. It's a messy, shared human story, full of these brilliant, shining moments in places we might not expect. Remembering these lost golden ages isn't just about filling in some historical gaps. It forces us to rethink our entire understanding of where our modern world and all its big ideas really came from.